Hi everyone, I'm Todd Nauck. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So we're continuing the X-Men group shot Copic color video series here. So we've gotten quite a few X-Men done. Now we're up to the Beast, Hank McCoy here. The bombastic Beast. So we'll flip the camera around. I'll get to coloring. I'll share with you my tips, tricks, and my Copic color codes. So you know which colors I use to color my drawing. So let's get to work. Okay, so we're going to be using several different shades of blue here on the Beast. So right now I want to start with what I think will be my base shade, my base color, which will be a B04. So I'm going to use different shades of blue to kind of sculpt them out and keep them from looking too flat is my goal. So as always, I'm keeping in mind the shape of his face, the different planes and angles of his face, as well as the light source, because that's going to determine where I put color and which colors, and also shading. So right now this is my base shade, so I'm going to build off of this shade of blue with darker and lighter shades as we go, as well as some of my cool grays, pardon me, for more realistic shading. So I'm considering every part of the Beast's anatomy here. Each section, so from the neck to the shoulders, through the arms, the pecs, the clavicle bone there. This is why we say, study anatomy. Learn your anatomy as best as possible. Even if your style is maybe more exaggerated, maybe more cartoonish, it's still based off of reality. It's an exaggeration of reality. So learn your anatomy and learn where things go as best you can. It will help in how to render your figure, whether it be with line art or with color. Knowing these shapes really is a help and a benefit to your illustrations and making them look believable no matter what your art style is, whether it's hyper realistic or hyper cartoony or anything in between. So as we move further away from the light, less highlight put on there. So I was considering where's the light coming from, leaving a lot of white on the board here initially for some lighter shades of blue. Don't know if I'll leave many white highlights in this shot of the Beast, because I doubt his fur is really that reflective. We might have a little bit of white left in there for maybe some of the... I'm sure he takes good care of his hair and probably, washes his fur with high-grade shampoos for, clean, healthy coat and shine. Because the Beast seems like a guy who grooms himself well. But I don't think I'll leave big white areas here ultimately. But we will come in with lighter shades of blue here a little bit later on. But right now, base shades, B04 is what we're still working with. Okay, so let's come in with a little bit of a darker shade right now. Gonna come in with some B05. So it's a little darker, not necessarily a shadow shade, though this darker shade of blue is falling where I'm utilizing this where shadows would be, to kind of start building up towards my ultimate, shadow sculpting here. But I will be using those cool grays a little later on for the more realistic shadow. So think of all the places where the light would fall. And like here in the armpit, probably not a lot of lights getting there, so we're going to have heavier, darker colors and shadow. for because he's kind of hunched, he's kind of squatting here, he's kind of hunched over, less light is going to fall on the abs the further we get down. Here in that armpit as well. This side of the muscle, this side. Just study where light falls on things. I'll look at things in real life and kind of look at where light is falling and where the shadows are falling in relation to each other. Just kind of mentally cataloging the stuff by what I see in real life or what I see in photos or on TV shows or movies. Looking at lighting and what shapes are made and where does the light fall, where do the shadows fall opposite to that. Okay, so that was some B05. I'm going to change up the B family and go to the B12 here. I'm going to pull some of this lighter shade of blue into the white. Now, this is the B0 family and the B1 family are two different values of blue, but I like to mix them up sometimes to create new colors, new shades of blue by layering these blues from two different families. I like how the inks will start to blend together, and because it's a B0 and a B1 families, I call them families. I don't know if Copic actually calls them families, but I like to refer to them as families. Families of anywhere from 5 to 9 members, depending on how many shades Copic has made of each value. So switching up to the B1 to create new textures of color, of shades of blue here. So eating up some more of that white that I've put on there. Still leaving a little bit of that white. I'm going to come in with an even lighter shade of blue here in a little bit. But until then, just working this B12. I'm going to do his hair, Beast's hair, a darker shade, much like I did with Nightcrawler. It's a very similar effect when I get to the hair. So if you're wondering why, hey, Beast's hair is blue, why aren't you coloring blue in his hair? Not time just yet. So I'm going to stay in that B1 family. I'm going to darken up to the B14. I just want to sculpt in a little more darker sections. Like under the pecs here, through the abdomen. I just really like how the different shades of blue are creating different furry textures here. The way the inks are really made to blend with each other, which is really a nice thing about the Copic markers, is the inks are made to blend, and the brush tip really helps in achieving that blending because it's got softer give, so it will allow you to really sculpt the color and blend the color, much like a paintbrush. But it's a little easier to control than if you're not used to using brushes, because it's kind of halfway between a brush tip and a marker tip. It's like a very specific texture and give to the brush, the marker, this specific brush tip application, which I really like. But it definitely takes practice to kind of get used to it. Can even come in here and kind of sculpt some furry textures here, just some light brush strokes here in the direction that I've already established with the inks here for which way the fur is going. The grain of the fur, I guess one would say. To kind of help give that furry texture a little more. A little bit more in there inside the ears. A little more underneath the jaw and chin. So let's see. Let's switch this up to a... Actually, what I'm going to do is switch to the hair. I'm still going to use some lighter shades here, but right now I want to kind of get some base work done on the hair. So I'm going to start with the B97. I'm going to pull from the root of his hair out. This is my darkest shade of blue that I'll be using. It's in the B9 family. So I was using the B0 family, then the B1 family, or the B0 and the B1. Now I'm using some B9 family. Actually, I only have one color in the B9 family. That's this B97. Just really like this shade of kind of a bluish gray navy blue. Maybe a little bit here on the outer part of the hair. A little bit through his, actually a lot of it through his sideburns here. I'm going to power this down into the B4 family, the B4-5. Leaving that center streak right there, leaving that white as the highlight that runs through his hair, much like we did with Kitty Pryde or with Jean. Doing the same here with the Beast. So it arcs through, the light's hitting there, and on his healthy Pantene Pro-V shine to his hair. Want to leave that white in there for a nice, cool highlight. Here on the sides, just eating up that with color. But right there across the top, leaving that, and it really gives a nice volume to his hair and nice cool shine effect. Alright, so I actually wanted to use a little bit of this B4-5, this darker shade. I want to bring this into his fur just a little bit as well. Just in some of the darker areas. I like the way this shade blends with the B0 and B1 family of markers that I used. So I want to bring this in here just because I think it looks cool. I think the shade works really nicely. And I don't want too much of this in here, because I don't want it to compete too much with his hair. I like the hair to stand up apart from the body, but there is still a similarity in the shades of blue that I don't mind them sharing. So I just want to put a little bit of this in here. To kind of tie the blue of his body fur with the blue of his head hair. Just a little bit. Maybe a little bit more here in the tufts of forearm hair that kind of hang from the undersides of his forearm. Let's see, for his trunks are also blue. And you know what, we're going to go with a B06 just because it's going to be different than the other shades of blue I've used and help his trunks to kind of hopefully stand out against I'm leaving this one little bit here. I'm going to leave that white just for kind of a highlight, so that when I fill in this part gray here, that little white part will really pop off the page. So when much like I did here with Kitty's legs, same mentality there for that part, little portion of his trunks. And then once I put in the background grays in a future video, it'll all kind of start to come together. So let's see. What I need to do now is, let's come in with some light blue here. I'm going to come in with my B01. And now I'm really kind of blending this all together. This light shade of blue really is kind of the bring it home, blend all the blues together, kind of eating more into that white, leaving a little bit of the highlight, like right there on the tip of the nose, maybe right there on the cheekbones, maybe right there on top of the chin. Not a lot. Leaving very little white on the board. Maybe little spots here and there, but definitely not doing it like I did here or on the yellow of Kitty's uniform or some of the other characters. Using more of this blue to really render him out. And this light blue is reactivating all the inks of the other shades of blue I've laid down, and they all start to blend and start to give a nice watercolor blendy transition from one color to the next. You can leave some hard cuts of color. You can really saturate the color so it really starts to blend and all the shades start to kind of just seamlessly transition from one to the next. Let's put a little bit of this light blue into his hair here, kind of barely touching that white highlight, just barely. Just to kind of tie it all in together. Gonna leave his teeth white, leave his eyes white. So let's come into the grays for some more realistic shading. So I'm using cool grays. Going to start with a cool gray 4. I was using the B01 before. If I didn't mention what shade of light blue I was using, that was the B01. Now for the shadows, more realistic shadows, coming in with the cool gray. Sorry, not the Bs. We've left the Bs. We're into the cool grays. Cool gray C1 or C4. C4. Now I'm really keeping in mind the light source and where I want these shadows to fall. It's going to be in places where light's not hitting or the opposite side of where the light is from. And as we've established with the other characters, it's kind of above and a little bit to the left, maybe even less to the left, almost more straight down, because Beast is here on the far left side of this illustration. So the light source might be a little bit different from him than it would be, say, for Cyclops or Jean Grey. So as I mentioned before in other videos, I like to use the cool grays, maybe some neutral or warm grays every now and again, for my shading and shadows, because it takes out that Skittle sort of bright, candy-coated coloring. Nothing wrong with that. If that's your style, cool, more power to you. Keep having fun. Rock it the way you do. But I personally, for my style, I like to ground my characters in reality a little bit more, and I find that the cool gray can bring a really cool effect, gives the eye more to play with, brings in a more realistic shadow, and kind of blurs the line between fantasy and reality. I really like to sculpt with this cool gray, and really bringing in heavy cool gray here and down in the lower part of the abdomen, because as we mentioned before, parts like down here, the armpits, maybe underneath the eyes, underneath the nose, definitely underneath the chin, the overlaps onto the neck. It's not going to see as much light, so we're going to have more shadow. The forearms over the knee, so sorry there gang, just the forearms over the knee, the hand over this thigh, the way the knuckles have bent, so the light's hitting here, but each digit of the finger bends, so these parts of the fingers, a little less light than right there because they've wrapped around his thigh. So keeping those little details in mind, every little detail, every little shape are things I'm thinking about and considering. All right. So that's cool gray 4. I'm going to come in with a little cool gray 6. It's a bit darker, just to kind of drop in some shadows just in a few key areas here. Not going to use a lot of this, just a little more, just to give some darker shade cuts in some of those far-reaching shadow areas. Just as a finishing touch there. Now sometimes we can see the Beast pupils, sometimes we can't, all depending on the situation. So here I've gone just those kind of just pupilless glowing eyes, and those would be white, so I can leave those white as is. Same with his teeth. Actually with the teeth I'll come in with a little bit of cool gray 1. Just to put a little bit of a shadow here on each side, just to give it a little texture. And that's it. Beast is all about blues and grays, and we have achieved that. So there we go. Let's flip the camera around and sign off. Okay, there we go. We got Beast added to the group shot. All right. Lots, like I said, lots of blue, lots of gray. So, gang, I hope you had a good time. If you liked the video, please leave me a thumbs up and feel free to leave a comment as well. It's always great to hear from you. And make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on future videos. And if you're on any of the social media, so am I. Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, Facebook, they're all linked in the video description below. Gang, thanks so much for hanging out with me. I hope you had a good time. So keep on drawing, keep having fun. Take care.